They called me a gold digger right to my face at our engagement party while I smiled politely and pretended not to hear. "I give it a year before she takes him for everything," whispered Margaret, Jason's mother, to his Aunt Carol. Their crystal, champagne flutes clinked as they huddled together in the corner of the ballroom, eyeing me like vultures. I smoothed down the simple black dress I'd purchased from a department store, frugal habits die hard, and took another small sip of champagne. My fiancé Jason stood across the room, proudly showing his childhood friends the ring he'd insisted on buying me, a beautiful 2-carat diamond that cost more than my first car, a ring I'd tried to talk him out of. "Probably researching divorce attorneys already," Carol snickered, making no effort to lower her voice as I passed by. "You know these types. They can smell money across the city. If only they knew that my net worth eclipsed their family's combined assets several times over. If only they knew who really owned the venue where we were celebrating. If only they knew that the struggling journalist their precious Jason had fallen for could buy and sell their family business without blinking an eye. But they didn't know, because I'd never told Jason the truth about my finances. Not because I was dishonest, but because I'd learned the hard way that money changes everything. 12 hours earlier, I had been standing in my modest one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, the same place I'd lived for 5 years despite having the means to purchase any penthouse in Manhattan. A calculated choice. The apartment served as the perfect cover for the life I'd carefully constructed. Ordinary, unassuming, invisible. Just the way I preferred it. "Are you sure about this dress, Emma?" my best friend Lily asked, eyeing my simple black cocktail dress with obvious disapproval. "It's your engagement party. You could wear something more impressive." I smoothed down the fabric, checking my reflection in the mirror. "It's perfect. Elegant, understated." "That's one way to put it," Lily mumbled, shaking her head. She was one of only 3 people on the planet who knew the truth about my financial situation. "You know his mother already thinks you're after his money. This isn't helping your case." "I'm not trying to win her approval," I replied, applying a touch of mascara. "Besides, if I showed up dripping in designer clothes, wouldn't that just confirm her suspicions?" Lily flopped down on my IKEA couch, another intentional purchase. "Maybe. But there's a middle ground between rags and riches, Em. You don't have to play poor." "I'm not playing anything," I insisted, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "I just don't want Jason or his family to see me differently. They're going to find out eventually." I paused, mascara wand midair. "Maybe, but not tonight." The truth was, I'd spent my entire adult life hiding my wealth. After watching money destroy my parents' marriage, transform lifelong friends into opportunists and attract partners who only saw dollar signs when they looked at me, I'd made a decision. Emma Chen, heiress to the Chen-tech fortune, would disappear. In her place would be just Emma, a hard-working journalist trying to make her own way in the world. The money would remain safely invested, growing steadily, but separated from my daily life like a secret identity. When I met Jason 2 years ago at a coffee shop where I was writing an article, he had no idea who I was. He asked me about my work, not my family name. He insisted on splitting the check on our first date, despite my limited journalist salary. He loved me for me, not for the fortune I concealed. At least, that's what I believed until I met his family. "You're overthinking this," Jason had assured me last week when I expressed concerns about meeting his parents. "They'll love you because I love you." But the moment I walked into their Upper East Side apartment for dinner, I felt Margaret Reynolds' eyes evaluating me, cataloging every piece of my carefully curated middle-class appearance. The questions followed, each one probing for weakness. "Journalism must be such an unstable career these days," she'd remarked while passing the potatoes. "Newspapers folding left and right. How do you manage?" "I freelance for several publications," I'd replied simply. "It keeps things interesting." "How resourceful," she'd said with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jason tells us you went to Columbia. Scholarships, I assume? Jason had intervened then, changing the subject, but the damage was done. In Margaret Reynolds' eyes, I was a gold digger who had somehow ensnared her son, the successful surgeon from a good family. If she only knew that my grandfather had donated the wing of the hospital where her son now performed surgeries. Back. In the present, Lily checked her watch. Cars downstairs? Ready to face the dragons? I tucked my mother's heirloom pearl earrings, the only expensive items I allowed myself to wear, more securely into my ears. As I'll ever be. The party venue was the Wellington, one of Manhattan's most exclusive event spaces. Jason had been thrilled when he miraculously secured a last-minute reservation after another party canceled. The miracle, of course, was a single phone call from me to the manager, who knew exactly who owned the building through a maze of holding companies. "Emma, you look beautiful," Jason said when we arrived, kissing me softly. At 34, he was devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. A talented pediatric surgeon with a heart of gold, the kind of man I'd given up hoping existed before we met. "You clean up pretty well yourself, Dr. Reynolds," I teased, straightening his tie. His expression clouded briefly. "My mother's been asking why we didn't do the party at their country club. Because I can't stand the pretentiousness of that place," I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I offered, "This venue has more character. Besides, it was available." "I know, it's just, they're trying in their way." He squeezed my hand. "Let's make the best of tonight." But their way of trying became abundantly clear as the evening progressed. The whispers followed me everywhere. Jason's college friends eyed me suspiciously. His family closed ranks, exchanging knowing glances whenever I approached. "I hear she lives in some tiny apartment in Brooklyn," one of Jason's cousins stage whispered. "Can you imagine? And he's still buying her a ring worth more than she probably makes in a year." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that their opinions didn't matter. Only Jason's did, and he knew who I was, the version of me that mattered anyway. "There you are." His voice came from behind me, his arm slipping around my waist. "Everything okay?" "You seem tense." I forced a smile. "Just a little overwhelmed. It's a lot of people." He nodded sympathetically. "Come on. My colleagues from the hospital just arrived. They've been dying to meet you." As Jason led me across the room, I saw his mother intercept us, champagne glass in hand and determination in her eyes. "Darling," she cooed, ignoring me completely. "The Vandermeers just arrived. You remember their daughter Sophia? She's just back from Paris. Harvard Medical School graduate, just like you. You two had such chemistry at the charity gala last year." My stomach tightened. I'd heard about Sophia before, the one who got away, according to Margaret. The suitable match. "Mother," Jason said, warning evident in his tone. "I'm engaged to Emma. Please respect that." Margaret's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. "Of course, dear. I'm just suggesting you say hello to old friends." She turned to me finally, gaze dropping to my simple dress. "Emma, I thought we discussed the dress code for tonight. This is rather basic for the occasion." Before I could respond, Jason's father appeared, clapping his son on the shoulder. "There's my boy. Come, the Simmons want to congratulate you." He paused, glancing at me. "Alone, if you don't mind, Emma. Business talk." Jason hesitated, looking between us. "Go," I encouraged. "I'll find Lily." As Jason reluctantly walked away with his father, Margaret lingered, sipping her champagne as she assessed me. "That ring looks quite heavy on your finger," she observed, coolly. "I hope you appreciate what my son is providing for you. 5 years ago, I might have snapped back, might have revealed everything just to see the shock on her face, but experience had taught me restraint. I appreciate Jason for who he is, Mrs. Reynolds, I replied evenly, not what he provides. She laughed a brittle sound. How noble. But let's be honest with each other, shall we? Women like you don't date surgeons from wealthy families because you love their minds. I counted to 3 silently. Women like me? Don't play coy. It doesn't suit you. She leaned closer, her perfume expensively cloying. I've seen your type before. The humble act, the wide-eyed gratitude. Jason is a brilliant, successful man from a respected family. What exactly are you bringing to this relationship besides your journalist salary? The irony almost made me laugh out loud. What was I bringing? Only enough wealth to buy her family's respected name a dozen times over. Instead, I said nothing, which she took as confirmation. That's what I thought, she said with satisfaction. Listen carefully. My husband and I have protected Jason's interests. Whatever you think you'll get from this marriage, think again. There are prenuptial agreements, trusts that you'll never touch. I have no interest in Jason's money, Mrs. Reynolds. Everyone has a price, dear. She patted my arm condescendingly. You'll find yours when the time comes. She drifted away, leaving me seething but composed. This was exactly why I kept my wealth hidden. People revealed their true selves when money was involved, and the Reynolds family was showing me exactly who they were. Across the room, I spotted Lily at the bar, raising an eyebrow in silent question. I gave a slight headshake. Not yet. The evening continued its excruciating pace. I endured more subtle jabs and not-so-subtle interrogations. Jason's uncle wanted to know if my parents had set anything aside for the wedding. His mother's friends asked if I planned to continue working after marriage, their tones suggesting my career was a charming hobby. Through it all, Jason remained oblivious, circulating through the crowd, proudly introducing me as his fiancé while I maintained my composure. He couldn't hear the whispers that followed in our wake, the assessments of my worth, the calculations of what I might cost him. It was during the dinner that things escalated. We were seated at the main table, Jason on my right, his mother on my left. When the toasts began, Jason's father stood first, raising his glass. To my son, he proclaimed, who has always made the Reynolds name proud. From his academic achievements to his surgical innovations, Jason exemplifies excellence in everything he does. He paused, his gaze sliding over me before continuing. We trust he'll continue making wise choices in all aspects of life. The implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. I felt Jason stiffen beside me. Others followed with similarly barbed congratulations. Jason's godfather reminisced about the fine young ladies Jason had dated before, all from such good families. His cousin mentioned how unexpected this engagement was, emphasizing that the Reynolds family traditions would surely continue. By the time Jason's mother rose, glass in hand, I was preparing for the worst. To my son, she began, her voice carrying across the suddenly hushed room, who has always had excellent judgment. And to Emma, she turned to me, eyes glittering, who has captured his heart. May you both get exactly what you deserve from this union. Scattered applause followed as she sat. Under the table, Jason squeezed my hand apologetically. I'm sorry, he whispered. They're just protective. Is that what this is? I whispered back, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Before he could answer, his mother's voice cut in. Emma, darling, I've been meaning to ask. That little newspaper you write for, is it doing well? So many print publications struggling these days. I do hope you have a backup plan. I set down my fork carefully. Actually, Mrs. Reynolds, I'm working on a feature series about family wealth, specifically how it's preserved and transferred across generations. I smiled pleasantly. Perhaps you'd like to contribute your thoughts? I find people have such fascinating attitudes about new money versus old. Her expression froze. I don't think that would be appropriate. No. It's quite interesting research. For instance, did you know that 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the second generation? And 90% by the third? Jason looked between us, sensing the undercurrent. Emma's very knowledgeable about finance, he said proudly. She's been helping me reorganize my investment portfolio. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Has she indeed? How helpful of her. Just friendly advice, I said lightly. I believe everyone should understand where their money goes. The conversation shifted, but Margaret's suspicious gaze remained fixed on me for the rest of the meal. I'd pushed too far, revealed too much knowledge for someone supposedly struggling on a journalist's salary. As dinner concluded and guests moved toward the dance floor, Jason was once again pulled away by colleagues. I escaped to a quiet corner, needing a moment alone, when I overheard the conversation that would change everything. I've had my people look into her. Jason's father's voice came from around the corner, where he apparently stood with Margaret. Nothing suspicious in her background, but nothing impressive either. Middle-class family from Connecticut, decent education, no significant assets, certainly no connections that would benefit us. So she really is after his money, Margaret concluded. I knew it the moment I saw her, the way she examined our home, asking about the art pieces, calculating values. I had asked about their art because I recognized an emerging artist whose work I'd supported through my anonymous foundation. I wasn't calculating values. I was admiring brushstrokes. The prenup will protect Jason, his father continued. I've made sure of it. But this whole relationship is a distraction from his potential. Sophia Vandermeer is still available, and her father just made partner at Goldman. That's the alliance we need. Jason seems genuinely attached to this girl, Margaret sighed. But perhaps when she realizes she won't get what she's after? Everyone has a price. His father echoed her earlier words to me. Find hers. I stepped back, accidentally brushing against a decorative vase. The slight sound alerted them to my presence. Emma! Margaret's face appeared around the corner, her expression shifting seamlessly from conspiratorial to falsely warm. We were just talking about you. I heard, I said quietly. Her husband joined her, nodding stiffly. Just concerned parent. Talk! Nothing personal. It sounded quite personal, I countered, my patience finally wearing thin. And quite incorrect. Margaret's smile tightened. Dear, we're simply looking out for our son's interests. Surely you can understand that. What I understand is that you've decided who I am without knowing the first thing about me. Jason's father cleared his throat dismissively. We know enough. Listen, young lady, our son comes from a certain background, with certain expectations. Robert, Margaret cautioned, glancing around to ensure no one was witnessing this confrontation. I stood my ground. I love your son. Not his medical degree, not his bank account. Him. A noble sentiment, his father replied condescendingly. But love doesn't pay for the lifestyle he's accustomed to. Before I could respond, Jason appeared beside me, his expression concerned. Everything okay here? An uncomfortable silence fell. His parents exchanged glances. Just getting to know Emma better, his father finally said, clapping Jason on the shoulder. We should rejoin the party. As they walked away, Jason turned to me. What was that about? I hesitated, torn between honesty and peacekeeping. Just more of the same. They think I'm after your money. Jason ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm sorry. They'll come around eventually. But I wasn't so sure. The conversation I'd overheard made it clear that the Reynolds family had already judged and sentenced me. In their eyes, I was guilty of the crime of not being good enough for their son. What would happen if they discovered the truth? That the woman they accused of being a gold digger was worth more than their entire family fortune? That the struggling journalist could buy their family business with her quarterly investment returns? As Jason led me back to the party, I spotted Lily across the room, raising an eyebrow in silent question. I knew what she was asking. Was it time to reveal the truth? I gave an almost imperceptible shake of my head. Not yet, but soon. Because while I'd built my relationship with Jason on love and shared values, I'd also built it on a significant omission. And as his family's hostility escalated, I was beginning to realize that my carefully maintained secret might need to come to light, whether I was ready or not. The evening was drawing to a close, but the night's revelations were just beginning. As guests started to depart, I stood beside Jason, playing the role of the gracious fiancé. Margaret approached, her smile brittle as she air-kissed a departing friend, then turned to me. "Emma, dear," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. "A word about the wedding plans?" Jason squeezed my shoulder. "Can it wait, Mother? It's been a long night." "Just a quick question about the budget," she pressed. "Since traditionally, the bride's family handles certain expenses, we need to understand what your parents can contribute. If they're unable to manage the standard obligations, we'll need to adjust accordingly." Even Jason winced at the naked calculation in her tone. "Mother, that's not—" "It's all right," I interrupted, my patience finally fraying at the edges. "What exactly would you like to know about my financial situation, Mrs. Reynolds?" Margaret's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. "Simply trying to plan practically. A Reynolds wedding has certain expectations attached. The implied message was clear. My family couldn't possibly afford what the Reynolds name demanded." As I opened my mouth to respond, Lily appeared at my side, champagne glass in hand and warning in her eyes. "Emma, your car is here." I nodded gratefully. "We should go," I told Jason. "Early morning tomorrow." As we said our goodbyes, Margaret held my hands a moment too long. "Think carefully about what you're getting into, dear. Marriage is about compatibility, in all areas, including backgrounds." I met her gaze steadily. "I couldn't agree more, Mrs. Reynolds. Genuine compatibility is essential." In the car headed back to Brooklyn, Jason apologized profusely. "They were horrible tonight. I've never seen them like this." "Haven't you?" I asked quietly. "Or have you just never noticed?" He fell silent, contemplating. "They're just protective, old-fashioned about certain things. They think I'm a gold digger, Jason. They made that abundantly clear." "Then we'll prove them wrong," he said firmly. "Together." I leaned my head against the window, watching Manhattan's lights blur past. "Yes," I murmured. "Perhaps it's time for some truth." As the car crossed the bridge to Brooklyn, I made my decision. The charade had gone on long enough. It was time the Reynolds family learned exactly who they were dealing with, and exactly what their son had unknowingly become engaged to. The question was, would my revelation destroy the very relationship I was trying to protect? The morning. After our engagement party, I woke in my modest Brooklyn apartment to 17 missed calls from Lily and a text that simply read, "They're digging. Call me." My stomach tightened as I scrolled through my notifications and spotted an email from Thomas Richards, my family's longtime financial manager. Subject line, "Urgent, privacy breach attempt." I called him immediately, padding to my kitchen to start coffee while the phone rang. "Emma," Thomas answered on the first ring. "Good, you're up. We have a situation." "What happened?" I asked, though I already suspected. "Someone's been making inquiries. Thorough ones. Professional-grade background checks, financial probes, even attempting to access sealed records from your grandfather's estate." His voice was calm but tense. "They're not being particularly subtle about it." "The Reynolds family?" I sighed, leaning against my countertop. "Most likely. The requests came through a private investigation firm they've used before. I've blocked what I can, but they're persistent." I closed my eyes, massaging my temple. How much could they access? Nothing substantial yet. The trusts are secure, holding companies intact. Your personal finances appear exactly as you've designed them. Modest income, reasonable savings, nothing that would raise flags. And Chentek? Your connection remains confidential. As far as public records show, Emma Chen is merely a distant relative of the founding family, not the majority shareholder and chairperson. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. After my parents' death 10 years ago, I'd restructured everything, creating layers of privacy that allowed me to live normally while still controlling the tech empire my grandfather had built. Chentek's public face was my uncle, who happily played CEO while I made the actual decisions through quarterly advisory board meetings. They won't stop looking, I said finally. Jason's father is thorough. If they're investigating me, they'll keep digging until they find something. Thomas was silent for a moment. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your position, Emma. You've maintained this separation between your personal and financial lives for years. Is it still serving you? It was a fair question, one I'd been asking myself since last night. I need to think, I replied. In the meantime, maintain all security protocols but alert me to any further attempts. After hanging up, I called Lily, who answered immediately. Finally, I've been calling since dawn. I just spoke with Thomas. Apparently the Reynolds family has hired investigators. They're not wasting any time, she said. I've got more news. My cousin works at Manhattan Memorial Hospital. You know, where Jason practices. And? She overheard his mother in the donor relations office yesterday, questioning your lack of family attendance at the engagement party, specifically asking whether anyone had ever met your parents. My parents' absence would have been hard to explain, had anyone directly asked. The truth, that they died in a yacht accident off the coast of Monaco 10 years ago, would have immediately led to questions about family wealth that I wasn't prepared to answer. What did she find out? Nothing yet. But Emma, she's going to keep pulling threads until the whole sweater unravels. I stared out my window at the brick building across the street, considering my options. I need to talk to Jason, really talk to him, before his family digs up something and twists it. You think he'll understand why you've kept this from him? It was the question that had haunted me for months as our relationship grew serious. I don't know. But I'd rather he hear it from me than from a private investigator's report on his mother's desk. After hanging up, I showered and dressed simply, then texted Jason. Can you come over this morning? Need to talk about something important. His reply came quickly. Surgery until 2. Everything okay? Still recovering from last night? Everything's fine. See you at 3? We'll be there. Love you. Those last 2 words gave me hope and twisted my stomach simultaneously. Would he still feel that way after learning I'd concealed such an enormous part of my life from him? The hours crawled by as I prepared what to say. At precisely 3 p.m., my buzzer rang. Jason looked tired but happy to see me, still wearing scrubs under his coat. Came straight from the hospital, he explained, kissing me briefly before collapsing onto my couch. Tough surgery, but the kid's going to be fine. He patted the cushion beside him. What's up? You sounded serious in your text. I remained standing, suddenly unable to sit still. I need to tell you something. About me. About my life. His expression turned concerned. That sounds ominous. It's not bad, exactly, but it is significant. I took a deep breath. Jason, what do you know about Chentek Industries? He looked puzzled by the apparent non sequitur. The tech company, global headquarters in Singapore, secondary operations in California. They make medical imaging equipment my hospital uses. He paused. Wait, is this about your article? Are you investigating them? Not exactly. I paced across my small living room. My full name is Emma Chen. My grandfather founded Chentek in 1962. My father expanded it into medical technology in the 1990s. Jason blinked, processing. Okay, so you have a connection to the company. That's interesting, but why the serious tone? Because I don't just have a connection to it, I own it. Or rather, I own 62% of it. He stared at me, incomprehension, slowly giving way to disbelief. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm not just a journalist, Jason. I'm the controlling shareholder of a multinational corporation valued at approximately $28 billion. The words tumbled out now, unstoppable. My personal net worth, separate from company holdings, is just over $4 billion. I have homes in 6 countries that I rarely visit, a private jet I almost never use, investment portfolios that generate more money and interest each day than most people see in a lifetime. Jason's face had gone completely blank, a look I recognized from seeing him process unexpected news from patients. Is this a joke? I shook my head, pulling out my phone and opening a secure app. I handed it to him, displaying an investment portfolio summary that showed current holdings worth billions. This is, he began, then stopped, scrolling through the figures in stunned silence. The reason I'm telling you this now is that your family has hired investigators to look into my background. They're going to find something eventually, and I wanted you to hear it from me first. He set the phone down carefully as though it might explode. You've been hiding this the entire time we've known each other? Yes. Why? The hurt in his voice was unmistakable. Did you think I was after your money? That I couldn't be trusted? No. It wasn't about you specifically. It's how I've lived for years, ever since my parents died. Money changes everything, Jason. How people see you, treat you, what they expect from you. I sat beside him finally. When we met, I was just another person to you. Not an heiress, not a billionaire, just Emma. Do you have any idea how rare that is for me? He stood abruptly, moving to the window. So our entire relationship is based on a lie. Not a lie, I insisted. An omission. Everything else, who I am, what I believe, how I feel about you, that's all real. An omission? He turned, incredulous. Emma, you're secretly one of the wealthiest women in the world. That's not like forgetting to mention you don't like cilantro. No, it's a shock. A shock? He laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Yesterday, I was worried about my mother insulting you because she thought you weren't good enough for our family. Today, I find out you could buy and sell all of us without blinking. He raked his hand through his hair. God, the way they treated you at the party. And you just sat there and took it. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it right. His voice, raised slightly. Why didn't you say something? And what, humiliate them? Prove I'm exactly the kind of person who throws money and status around to win arguments? That's not... He stopped, visibly struggling to organize his thoughts. I just can't believe you've kept this from me for 2 years. We're engaged, Emma. We're supposed to share our lives. I am sharing my life with you. This is me doing that right now. I moved toward him, but he stepped back. I need some air. Some time to think. My heart sank. Jason, I just need to process this. Okay. His expression softened slightly, seeing my distress. It's a lot to absorb. I nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. He gathered his coat, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, I don't care about your money. I never would have. But I do care about honesty. After he left, I sank onto my couch, emotionally drained. The conversation had gone both better and worse than I'd feared. He hadn't immediately broken the engagement, but the hurt and confusion in his eyes haunted me. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. How'd it go? Not great. He needs time, he'll come around, he loves you. I hoped she was right, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. Hours passed with no word from Jason. Evening fell, and I considered calling him, then decided against it. He deserved space to process everything. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. Not Jason, but Thomas. "We have another development," he said without preamble. "The investigation firm accessed employee records from the New York Times, confirming you occasionally contribute pieces. They're now requesting verification of your income for the past 5 years." My frustration flared. "They're relentless." "There's more. Someone's been asking questions at your building. The doorman reported a woman matching Margaret Reynolds's description, inquiring about how long you've lived there, your visitors, even your packages." I closed my eyes, anger replacing anxiety. The invasion of privacy was too much. "Your recommendation?" I asked Thomas. "Stop playing defense," he replied, simply. "You've been reactive long enough. Perhaps it's time to change the dynamic." He was right. I'd spent years hiding in plain sight, maintaining a careful facade out of fear that wealth would corrupt my relationships. But in doing so, I'd created a different kind of imbalance, one built on omission rather than honesty. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. "The Reynolds family believes they're the ones with power and status. They're operating from that assumption. A simple correction might be illuminating for all involved." A plan began forming in my mind. "Can you arrange a meeting with the board of Manhattan Memorial tomorrow? The full board, including donor relations?" "Consider it done." "And the Reynolds family?" "They'll receive their own invitation," I replied, a newfound determination hardening my voice. "It's time they understand exactly who they've been investigating." After hanging up, I sent a text to Jason. "I know you need space, and I respect that. I'd like to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Manhattan Memorial Hospital, Conference Room A. If you can't make it, I understand, but I hope you'll be there." His reply came an hour later. "I'll be there." No "love you," no warmth, just confirmation. It would have to be enough for now. The next morning, I dressed differently than I had in years. Gone was the carefully curated middle-class wardrobe, the understated accessories, the intentional modesty. Instead, I wore what I would to a Chentech board meeting, a perfectly tailored Chanel suit, Louboutin heels, and my mother's diamonds. My armor for battle. Lily whistled when she met me in the lobby of my building. The real Emma Chen emerges. "Should I call you Ms. Chen now? Or perhaps Your Highness?" I rolled my eyes. "Don't start. Seriously, though, you look incredible. The Reynolds clan won't know what hit them." "That's the general idea," I replied as we slid into the waiting town. Another luxury I typically avoided. "You sure about this? Going nuclear so quickly?" I gazed out the window as Manhattan's skyline came into view. "They went nuclear first, Lily. Investigating me, interrogating my doorman, probing my finances, all because they decided I wasn't good enough for their precious family. And Jason, you're risking a lot with him too." "I know," I said softly, "but our relationship can't move forward with this hanging between us. Better to lay all cards on the table now." At the hospital, Thomas waited in the lobby, tablet in hand and 2 assistants flanking him. The consummate professional, he betrayed no surprise at seeing me dressed as the executive I truly was, rather than the journalist I'd pretended to be, the T. "Board is assembled in Conference Room A," he reported. "The Reynolds family arrived 5 minutes ago. Robert, Margaret, and Jason's sister Catherine. Hospital administration was quite intrigued by the emergency meeting request from Chentech's chairperson." "And Jason?" "Not yet arrived." I nodded, squaring my shoulders. "Let's not keep them waiting." As we approached the conference room, I could hear Margaret Reynolds' voice through the door. Completely inappropriate to summon us like this. "Robert, you should speak to the board president about proper protocols." I paused, gathering myself. This moment would change everything. My relationship with Jason, my carefully maintained privacy, the power dynamic with his family. But I was Tired of hiding. Tired of being judged for a facade I'd created. I nodded to Thomas, who opened the door, entering first. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for convening on short notice. May I present Emma Chen, chairperson of Chen Tech Industries and majority shareholder. I stepped into the room, my heels clicking authoritatively on the hardwood floor. The board, members, 12 distinguished individuals in business attire, straightened immediately, recognizing either me or the power implied by Thomas's introduction. The Reynolds family, seated midway down the conference table, looked up in confusion. Margaret froze, champagne flute halfway to her lips, as recognition slowly dawned. Ms. Chen, an honor. The board president stood, extending his hand. We weren't aware you were personally overseeing the new imaging technology donation. A recent development, I replied smoothly, shaking his hand before surveying the room. I apologize for the mystery, but there are some matters requiring clarity, Ayuzai. Gaze locked with Margaret's, whose expression had transformed from confusion to shock to calculation in rapid succession. Robert Reynolds stared openly, his earlier confidence evaporating as he processed the implications of my presence. Ms. Chen, he finally managed, I believe there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Mr. Reynolds, I replied coolly. Just a correction of assumptions. I took my place at the head of the table, Thomas and my team arranging themselves. Behind me, the power dynamics in the room had shifted palpably, board members watching with fascinated attention. For those unfamiliar, I began, Chen Tech Industries has been a major donor to Manhattan Memorial for 15 years. The Chen Wing of Pediatric Surgery, where Dr. Jason Reynolds currently practices, was established by my grandfather and expanded by my father before their passing. The board president nodded in confirmation. The Chen family's contributions have been instrumental to our hospital's growth. I continued. Recent events have prompted me to take a more visible role in overseeing these investments. Specifically, the door opened, and Jason appeared, still in surgical scrubs, looking between me and his family with palpable tension. Our eyes met briefly before he took the only empty seat, directly across from his parents. Dr. Reynolds, I acknowledged professionally. Thank you for joining us. Margaret recovered enough to interject. Emma, what is the meaning of this charade? Charade, I repeated thoughtfully. An interesting choice of words, Mrs. Reynolds, considering your recent activities. I nodded to Thomas, who distributed folders to each person at the table. Inside, you'll find documentation of the investigation your family initiated into my background, finances, and personal history. You'll also find a summary of Chen Tech's relationship with Manhattan Memorial, including funding allocations for the next 5 years. Robert Reynolds opened his folder, color draining from his face as he scanned the contents. Margaret remained frozen, folder unopened before her. Your investigators were thorough, I continued, but ultimately unsuccessful in breaching the privacy structures I've maintained for years. However, they did cross several legal boundaries in their attempts, which my team has documented extensively. The board members were reading their folders with growing alarm, glancing between me and the Reynolds family. I'm not here to cause embarrassment, I said, softening my tone slightly. Merely to establish truth. I am Emma Chen. I have chosen to live modestly despite my financial resources, and I fell in love with Jason Reynolds, the surgeon, the man who spends his free time volunteering at the children's ward, not because of his family name or bank account. Jason's expression was unreadable as he reviewed the folder's contents. The Reynolds family's investigation into my background was predicated on the belief that I was pursuing Jason for financial gain, I continued. An ironic assumption, given the circumstances. Margaret finally found her voice. If this is true, why hide it? Why pretend to be something you're not? It was the question at the heart of everything, and I owed them all, especially Jason, the honest answer. Because wealth distorts reality, I said simply. It changes how the world perceives you, treats you, values you. After my parents died, I watched so-called friends and colleagues transform into opportunists overnight. I decided then that my personal life would be separate from my financial one. I turned to Jason directly. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I own. Is that so difficult to understand? For the first time since entering the room, his expression softened slightly. Robert Reynolds cleared his throat. This is all very dramatic, but hardly necessary. If you had simply been forthcoming about your background, would that have changed your behavior? I challenged. Or would you have simply pursued me for different reasons? Trading suspicion for opportunism, he had no answer for that. The board president intervened smoothly. Perhaps we should discuss the new imaging technology donation that Ms. Chen mentioned. Of course, I agreed, directing Thomas to distribute additional materials. As the meeting shifted to hospital business, I watched Jason from the corner of my eye. He remained silent, absorbing everything. Margaret Reynolds sat rigid in her chair, her earlier confidence shattered, but her pride intact. Occasionally, she would glance at me with a mixture of calculation and reassessment, already adjusting to this new reality. As the meeting concluded, board members lingered, eager to personally connect with the Chen family heir they'd previously known only as a name on donation plaques. I maintained professional courtesy but kept conversations brief. The Reynolds family huddled together near the exit, speaking in hushed tones. Jason stood apart from them, waiting. As the room finally emptied, leaving just Jason and me, I felt the weight of everything hanging between us. I'd laid all my cards on the table. The question now was whether our relationship could survive the revelation. So, he said finally, breaking the silence. That was quite a show. Was it? I approached, slowly. Or was it simply the truth finally told? He gestured around the conference room. This level of dramatics seems designed to make a point. Perhaps, I conceded. But after 2 years of hiding who I am, can you blame me for wanting to set the record straight definitively? You humiliated my family. They humiliated themselves, I corrected gently. I merely revealed the truth they were so desperately trying to uncover. Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know how to process any of this, Emma. Yesterday, I was engaged to a journalist. Today, my fiancé is revealing herself as the secret billionaire owner of a global corporation who apparently funds the hospital wing where I work. He met my eyes directly. Do you have any idea how disorienting that is? I'm still the same person, I said softly. The woman who loves your terrible cooking, who argues with you about movie endings, who held your hand through your grandmother's funeral. My bank balance doesn't change who I am at my core. He was silent for a long moment. I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Anything. Would you have ever told me the truth if my family hadn't forced your hand? It was the question I'd been asking myself since yesterday. Yes, I said finally. But I don't know when, and that's not fair to you. He nodded slowly, processing. I don't care about your money, Emma. I never would have. But I do care about honesty between us. I know, and I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. Where does this leave us? Jason looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I don't know. 3 days after the hospital boardroom confrontation, I sat in my Brooklyn apartment staring at Jason's engagement ring on my coffee table. He had left it behind after our last conversation, not with dramatic flourish or angry declaration, but with a quiet sadness that hurt far more than rage would have. I need time, he'd said, placing the ring gently on the table. This isn't me giving it back permanently. It's just, I can't wear it until I know who we are to each other now. I hadn't heard from him since, nor had I reached out, respecting. His need for space, even as uncertainty, gnawed at me. My phone buzzed. Lily checking in for the third time today? Still no word? I texted back. Nothing. Maybe I should call him? Her response came quickly. Give him the space he asked for. He's processing. She was right, but waiting had never been my strength. The same decisive leadership that had expanded Chentech into new markets made patience in personal matters challenging. I was used to solving problems, not sitting with them. My intercom buzzed unexpectedly. The doorman's voice came through the speaker. Ms. Chen, there's a Margaret Reynolds here to see you. I froze. Jason's mother was the last person I expected, or wanted, to see. Did she say what this is regarding? Just that it's important and personal. I considered refusing, then sighed. Send her up. I quickly surveyed my apartment, seeing it through Margaret's eyes. The modest furnishings, IKEA bookcases, and unremarkable decor that had once been my cover story now felt like a theatrical set that had served its purpose. I'd already placed calls about larger properties in Manhattan. If Jason and I moved forward, I was done with pretenses. A sharp knock at the door. I straightened my shoulders and opened it to find Margaret Reynolds looking both imperious and uncomfortable in the hallway of my decidedly middle-class building. Margaret, I greeted her neutrally. This is unexpected. She nodded stiffly. May I come in? I stepped aside, gesturing her into my small living room. She entered cautiously, as though worried the surroundings might somehow contaminate her Hermes suit. Tea? I offered mechanically. No, thank you. She remained standing, surveying the apartment with barely concealed curiosity. So this is where you've been living? By choice? Yes. How interesting. Her gaze landed on the engagement ring on the coffee table, and something flickered across her face. Concern, perhaps? Or satisfaction? I assume you didn't come here to discuss my living arrangements, I said, steering the conversation. What can I do for you, Margaret? She finally sat perched on the edge of my couch. I wanted to see you in your natural habitat, so to speak. To understand. Understand what exactly? Why someone with your resources would choose this? She gestured around the apartment. Why you would hide your background from my son, from our family. I sat opposite her. I think I made my reasons clear at the hospital. You made a theatrical point at the hospital, she corrected. Designed to embarrass us publicly. Is that how you saw it? Interesting? I kept my voice level. From my perspective, I was merely responding to an investigation your family initiated into my private affairs. Margaret had the grace to look momentarily discomfited. We were concerned for Jason. Surely you can understand that. Concern doesn't require hiring private investigators or interrogating my doorman. She sighed, removing her gloves with deliberate care. Perhaps we were overzealous, but you must admit, your deception invited suspicion. My private life is not deception, Margaret. It's privacy. I leaned forward. But we're talking in circles. You came here for a reason. What is it? I studied me with new intensity. Jason is miserable. The simple statement hit harder than I expected. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? She challenged. You turned his world upside down. Everything he thought he knew about his fiancé. I didn't change who I am, I interrupted. Only what? I own. Margaret laughed, a short, sharp sound. You can't possibly be that naive. Wealth of your magnitude changes everything. The dynamics of your relationship, your future together, the expectations. Only if we allow it to, I countered. She shook her head, looking almost pitying. This isn't just about money. It's about trust, foundations. Can you honestly say your relationship was built on complete honesty? The question stung because she was right, despite her self-serving motives for asking it. My omission had created an imbalance between Jason and me however justified I'd felt it was. "I love your son," I said simply. "That has always been honest." "Perhaps," she conceded. "But love without trust is a house built on sand." We sat in unexpected silence, two women who had misjudged each other, now reassessing. "For what it's worth," Margaret said finally, "I was wrong about your intentions toward Jason." The admission surprised me. "Thank you for saying that. Don't misunderstand. I still believe you damaged my son by withholding such significant information. But I no longer think you were after his money." She smiled thinly. "Obviously." I couldn't help a small smile at the absurdity. "Obviously?" Margaret stood, retrieving something from her handbag, a thick envelope that she placed on the coffee table beside the ring. "What's this?" "Information you should have," she said cryptically. "About Jason's past. About why this particular deception might be especially difficult for him." I stared at the envelope but didn't reach for it. If there's something I should know about Jason, he should be the one to tell me. Ordinarily, I would agree. But circumstances are complicated. She moved toward the door. "Read it or don't, but understand that my son has reasons beyond the obvious for his reaction to your secret." She paused with her hand on the doorknob. "For what it's worth, Ms. Chen, I think you might actually be good for Jason. But only if complete honesty becomes your policy moving forward." After she left, I stared at the mysterious envelope for a long time before finally opening it. Inside were newspaper clippings, legal documents, and a handwritten letter from Margaret herself. The story they told was heartbreaking. 7 years earlier, before Jason completed medical school, he had been engaged to a woman named Vanessa Taylor. According to Margaret's letter, the relationship had seemed perfect until 3 weeks before their wedding, when Jason discovered that Vanessa had been living a double life. She had another fiancé in Boston, another family she visited on supposed business trips, another entire life she'd hidden from him. The deception had devastated Jason, leading to a breakdown that delayed his medical career by a year. The legal documents showed restraining orders he'd needed to obtain when Vanessa refused to accept their breakup, claiming her dual engagements were merely a misunderstanding. My hands trembled as I read. No wonder my revelation had hit him so hard. To Jason, my secret fortune wasn't just an omission, it echoed the traumatic betrayal that had nearly destroyed him years earlier. I refolded the documents, understanding Margaret's visit in a new light. She hadn't come to gloat or threaten, but to provide context I desperately needed if there was any hope of salvaging my relationship with Jason. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Margaret Reynolds visited Chentech's New York office this morning, requesting meeting. Denied without appointment. Relevant? So she'd tried the company before coming directly to me. Interesting. Another." Text arrived. This one from Lily. "Jason just called me. Asking about you. Said his mother's been acting strange. What's happening?" Before I could respond, my phone rang. Jason himself. My heart raced as I answered. "Hello? Emma?" His voice sounded tired. "We should talk. In person." "I'd like that," I said carefully. "When?" "I just finished my shift. I could come by in an hour." "I'll be here." After we hung up, I paced my apartment, nerves tingling. I considered changing clothes, then laughed at myself. What would I be trying to prove now? Instead, I made coffee and waited, the envelope from Margaret tucked away in my desk drawer. If Jason wanted to tell me about Vanessa, he would. Otherwise, it wasn't my place to bring up his painful past. When he arrived, he looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, scruff on his usually clean-shaven face, hair uncombed. He'd come straight from the hospital again, still in scrubs under his coat. "You look tired," I said softly, taking his coat. "Haven't been sleeping well." He stood awkwardly in my living room, a space he'd previously moved through with comfortable familiarity. His gaze fell on the engagement ring, still on the coffee table. "You kept it out." "It belongs on my finger," I said simply. "I'm hoping it finds its way back there." He nodded, sitting heavily on the couch. "My mother came to see me this morning. She came here afterward." His eyes widened. "What? Why?" I chose my words carefully. "I think she's trying in her way to help us sort through this." "My mother? Helping?" He looked skeptical. "What did she say?" "That you were miserable, that trust is essential, that she was wrong about my intentions toward you." Jason looked stunned. "She admitted she was wrong?" Surprised me too. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. "These last few days, I've been trying to make sense of everything. How I feel, what it means. And I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm still angry, Emma. Not about the money. I couldn't care less if you're worth billions or nothing. I'm angry about the lie." "I understand. Do you?" His voice rose slightly. "Do you understand what it's like to build a life with someone? Plan a future only to discover they've kept something so fundamental from you?" I sat beside him, close but not touching. "I didn't lie about who I am, Jason. My values, my feelings, my dreams, those are all real. But you presented a false reality. The struggling journalist, the modest means." He gestured around the apartment. "This whole setup, it's a stage set, not a home." "Yes," I admitted. "And I'm done with it. If we move forward together, no more pretending." He was quiet for a long moment. "Why did you really hide it, Emma? The whole truth?" I took a deep breath. When my parents died, I was 22. Overnight, I went from being a college student to one of the wealthiest women in the world. And suddenly, everyone wanted something from me. My friends started treating me differently. Men I dated became interested in my business connections, my influence. No one saw me anymore. They only saw what I could do for them. Jason listened, intently as I continued. After one particularly painful breakup with a man who'd been investigating investment opportunities through me the entire time we dated, I made a decision. I would separate Emma Chen, the person, from Emma Chen, the heiress. I would live modestly, build genuine connections based on who I am, not what I own. "And then you met me," he said quietly. "And then I met you. This incredible doctor who cared more about his pediatric patients than career advancement. Who split the check on our first date and argued passionately about healthcare policy. Who saw me, really saw me. So why not tell me once you knew I wasn't after your money?" It was the central question, the one I'd been asking myself for days. "Fear," I admitted finally. "Fear that it would change us, change how you saw me, and then the longer I waited, the harder it became to find the right moment." Jason reached for my hand, the first physical contact between us in days. "You know what hurts the most? That you didn't trust me enough to handle the truth." "It wasn't about you," I said, squeezing his hand. "It was my issue, my fear. But you're right, I should have trusted you more." He nodded slowly. "I need to tell you something too. Something that might help explain why this hit me so hard." "Vanessa," I said softly, then immediately regretted it as his face registered shock. "How do you—" He dropped my hand. "My mother told you. She brought some newspaper clippings, documents. I didn't ask for them." He stood abruptly, pacing. "So you know about the lies, the double life. Just the basic facts, not the details, not how it felt." Jason stared out my window, his back to me. "When I found out about Vanessa's deception, it nearly destroyed me. Not just the heartbreak, but the realization that I could be so completely fooled by someone I thought I knew intimately. I'm not Vanessa," I said gently. "I didn't have another life, another relationship." No, he agreed, turning to face me. But you did hide a fundamental part of yourself. Can you understand why that might trigger some difficult memories? Yes. I stood, moving toward him cautiously. And I'm so sorry for that. He didn't back away. I've been trying to reconcile the Emma I fell in love with, the one who gets excited about farmers' markets and wears the same boots until they fall apart, with this billionaire tech heiress who confronts hospital boards and owns the building where we first met. They're both me, I said. I love farmers' markets and hate wasteful spending. I also happen to run a global company and have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. All of those things can be true simultaneously. Ghost of a smile touched his lips. You really do hate spending money, don't you? Even with billions, you refused to let me buy you the expensive olive oil last month. Because the store brand tastes exactly the same, I protested, relief flooding through me at this glimpse of our normal banter. So, what now? He asked, serious. Again. Where do we go from here? That depends, I said carefully. Do you think you can forgive me for not telling you sooner? Can you trust me again? Jason took a deep breath. I think trust can be rebuilt, but I need something from you first. Anything. Complete transparency moving forward. No more secrets. No more separate lives. Agreed, I said immediately. And, he continued, I need to know this is a partnership of equals. I won't be kept in the dark about your business or your assets. Not because I want to control them, but because secrets create walls, and I don't want walls between us. I nodded. I want that too. One more thing, he said, looking unexpectedly nervous. If we move forward, I need you to accept that I'll continue my career as planned. No special treatment, no pulled strings. Because of your connections, I smiled, understanding his concern. I would never interfere with your work, Jason. It's one of the things I love most about you. Your dedication to your patients. He studied my face for a long moment, then crossed the room to the coffee table. He picked up the engagement ring, turning it in his fingers. I still have questions, he warned, about your company, your investments, your real life. Ask me anything, I promised. I'm an open book from now on. Jason approached slowly, ring in hand. We'll need to start over in some ways. Build a new foundation based on the whole truth. I'd like that. It won't be easy, he cautioned. My family will need time to adjust, and I'm still processing everything. I know, I acknowledged. But if you're willing to try, so am I. He took my left hand in his, the ring poised at my fingertip. I'm not putting this back on as if nothing happened. I'm offering it again, to the real Emma Chen. The complete person, not just the parts you've chosen to show me until now. Tears threatened at the corners of my eyes. And I accept it as my whole self, no more compartmentalizing. He slid the ring back onto my finger, then pulled me into an embrace that felt both familiar and new. We stood in silence, both understanding that something had broken between us, but also that we were choosing to rebuild it, potentially stronger than before. My phone buzzed insistently from the kitchen counter. Jason released me with a small smile. Your real life calling? Let it wait, I said, silencing it without looking. This is more important. But it buzzed again immediately, then again. Then my landline rang, which never happened. Maybe you should check, Jason suggested. Could be important. I reluctantly grabbed my phone to find 15 missed calls and twice as many text messages. From Thomas, Lily, my uncle, and several board members. The most recent text from Thomas read, Urgent. Reynolds Surgical Supply Acquisition Attempt. Underway. Hostile action targeting Reynolds Medical Division. Not our initiative. Call immediately. What is it? Jason asked, noting my expression. I showed him the text. Someone's trying to buy your family's medical supply company, and they're using tactics that make it look like it might be me. His face darkened. But it's not? Absolutely not. I would never. I broke off as another text came through. Margaret Reynolds called Investor Relations, convinced we're behind this. Situation escalating. Jason's phone rang next. He checked the screen. It's my father. We exchanged glances, the momentary peace of our reconciliation shattered by this new complication. Take it, I said. I need to call Thomas anyway. As Jason spoke with his father, I stepped into my bedroom to call Thomas. What exactly is happening? I demanded. A Singapore-based holding company started accumulating Reynolds surgical supply stock this morning through multiple shell corporations, he explained. They've already secured nearly 20%. The pattern mimics our standard acquisition approach so closely that industry observers are assuming it's Chentech. But it's not us, I clarified. Absolutely not. I've issued denials, but the market's not buying it. Reynolds stock is surging on takeover speculation. Who's really behind it? Working on that. Initial analysis suggests Meridian Global, but they're covering their tracks well. Meridian Global. The name sent a chill through me. They were longtime Chentech competitors, and their CEO, Victor Lang, had a personal vendetta against my family, dating back to my grandfather's era. This isn't coincidence, I realized aloud. Someone's deliberately targeting the Reynolds company right after my connection to the family became known. That's our assessment as well, Thomas confirmed. Corporate, sabotage designed to damage both families. The timing is too precise to be accidental. When I returned to the living room, Jason was ending his call, his expression grim. My father says your company is trying to take over our family business, he said flatly. Right after you revealed your true identity to us. It's not me, I insisted. I swear, Jason. We think it's Meridian Global trying to cause problems between our families. He studied my face, and I could see him weighing my words against his lingering trust issues. My father wants me to come home immediately for an emergency family meeting. I understand. He specifically said you aren't welcome. The words stung, but weren't surprising. Also understandable. Jason ran a hand through his hair, clearly torn. I just started trusting you again, Emma, and now this? This is exactly the kind of manipulation I've dealt with my entire life, I said urgently. People using my wealth and position to create chaos. Please believe me. I had nothing to do with this. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you, but my family won't, not without proof. Then let's get them proof, I said, determination replacing anxiety. Come with me to the Chentech offices. See for yourself what we're doing to stop this. Then bring that information back to your family. Jason checked his watch. They're expecting me in an hour. That's enough time. Please, Jason, if we're going. To rebuild trust, let it start now. He considered briefly, then nodded. All right, show me. As we hurried out of my apartment together, I felt a strange mixture of dread and hope. Our personal reconciliation had barely begun before being tested by this new crisis. But perhaps facing it together would forge a stronger bond between us, proving that we could be partners in both calm and chaos. What I didn't yet realize was how much chaos was still to come, or how dangerous this corporate game would prove to be for both our families. In the end, Victor Lang's attempt to drive a wedge between our families backfired spectacularly. Jason and I presented irrefutable evidence to the Reynolds family that Meridian Global, not Chentech, was behind the hostile takeover attempt. The shared enemy united us in ways I couldn't have imagined. Robert Reynolds, impressed by the strategic counterattack I orchestrated to protect their company, proposed a merger instead, equal partnership between Reynolds Surgical Supply and Chentech's medical division. The business alliance sealed what our engagement had started, the joining of two families. Margaret, to everyone's surprise, became my staunchest defender. Anyone who thinks Emma married Jason for money clearly hasn't seen her wardrobe, she joked at our wedding 6 months later. The elegant but modest ceremony reflected both my wealth and my values. Extravagant donations to children's hospitals in lieu of lavish displays. Jason thrived as a surgeon, refusing special treatment despite his connection to the company that now supplied his hospital. My patients deserve a doctor who earned his position, he insisted, and I loved him all the more for it. As for me, I finally integrated the compartmentalized pieces of my life. I maintained my journalistic work, now focusing on economic inequality, a topic I understood from unique perspectives. The Emma Chen Foundation provided medical technology to underserved communities worldwide, with Jason leading surgical training missions during his vacations. We bought a beautiful but not ostentatious home in Brooklyn, where we hosted Sunday dinners for both families. The initial tensions dissolved into genuine warmth over time. You know, Jason said on our first anniversary, my mother actually suggested I wasn't good enough for you the other day.